Greetings, fellow nerds and geeks. Why don't you pull yourself up a chair, grab yourself a beverage, and prepare to enjoy a geek-tastic conversation. Welcome to the Geek Easy.
Welcome back to another episode of the Geek Easy podcast. This is episode number 67 for June 5th, 2019. I am Pixel Dan, and I am joined once again by Mr. Jonathan Leonard.
Hey!
And Jaron McCaffrey.
What's up?
What is going on, guys?
Man, same old.
Same old?
Same old, same old.
Same old, same
I
old?
don't know. I never know how to answer that.
I
feel
also,
like
yeah.
I feel boring.
Whenever somebody asks me that on the street, I just go, "Hey, what's going on?" Like that's, you know.
Yeah. Hey, what's up?
Yeah. Hey, what's going on? You
just go, yeah, and walk away.
give him the snap and the point.
There you are.
Hey, do I know you?
Sometimes I'll give him a, "Here comes the man," and then I walk on by.
There he is.
I try to be bipolar with my responses. Either very excited or very blasé. Yeah, there's no middle ground.
You should get very excited or very upset.
So it's the total opposite ends of the spectrum.
Not this guy again. People wouldn't know what to do, man.
Sometimes it happens multiple times, like walking down the hall at work. So the bipolar thing works pretty well with that because they're immediate. Good morning. Hey, good morning. Good morning. Hi.
Somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Well, I don't want to get my butt kicked.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Well,
It took us almost 9 seconds to go off the rails with this episode.
yep.
It's pretty good.
Should be a good one.
Yeah.
Should be a good one. Well, we do have some fun things to discuss today. There's been a couple movie releases that we're going to talk a little bit about since the last time we got together. A big wrestling show that's kind of been making waves that we definitely should discuss. But I want to go ahead and kick things off with a bit of a follow-up to a previous news story, because we talked in quite detail about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie trailer. And this is old news by now, meaning it's been like a week already, but we haven't had a chance to discuss the fact that they came out and said that the date has been postponed for the release of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. So this movie was supposed to come out this year and now has been pushed to February 14th of 2020 because they are redoing Sonic's design for the movie.
Yep. Plus, they want to hit that Valentine's Day market.
I guess so, right?
With their Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Yes, it's very important.
Hey, I know a couple women who were who were into the trailer and were like, "Did you hear that they changed that? That's so stupid."
They're mad about it?
Maybe it's gonna be a good date movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
Take her to see the little fuzzy fast rat movie.
I hope they don't change anything. They just sharpen his teeth.
so now it's just like these pointy, jagged teeth hanging out of his. Oh my gosh!
And then there's just actually a line in the trailer where they go, "There, fixed it."
Done.
Yeah.
I hope they just.
Sega's bitter.
I hope they just take like a bunch of random cut scenes from the video games and toss it in there, and that's just all. So like it doesn't even match up with any of the dialogue, and it's like real choppy like cut scenes of Sonic every time they show him. It'd be amazing.
I feel like my son is going to be really bummed, except I'm probably just not going to tell him because he's not real good with time frames yet. So
Yeah, he probably won't even notice.
Yeah, but he saw that trailer in front of the Pikachu movie and thought it was fine. And then later on, I told him about that new Sega thing coming out, and I showed him some of the games, and he immediately fell in love with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, that's cool.
And talked for nothing for 3 days about how he was going to play Sonic the Hedgehog.
Nice.
And keeps asking me every day how many days it is until we get Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, awesome,
you know?
awesome.
And then the news came out that that movie was going to be pushed way back, and I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to tell him.
Notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spencer knows of Sonic because of the cartoons. Like they're on I don't know if they're on Netflix or Hulu.
Yeah, somebody told
They're
me there
on
was
there.
some. I gotta search them out and find them.
So he's watched a whole bunch of them on there, so he knows who Sonic is. So I'm sure he's gonna be excited about the movie. But yeah, same thing. He's not gonna know that it's been pushed or changed. He's not even gonna notice.
Yeah. And in fairness, he's way more excited about getting the video game than he is.
Yeah. See, there you go.
The movie. So.
There you go. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens with this. I feel like this is one of those. Like, this doesn't happen ever, right? Like, this seems like very new.
It's rare.
Yeah.
And it takes a different form every time, you know. I mean, let's remember the internet wrote Snakes on a Plane.
Well,
like, that was a real movie, and then the internet got a hold of it and did a bunch of memes and made a bunch of jokes and became the sensation, and they went and changed a ton of the script to incorporate all of the internet's lines into it.
I didn't realize it went that far.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That movie's amazing because it's so absurd. I don't know. The whole thing felt a little weird to me, and like I was right there with Jaren because it was me and you talking about how terrible this looked. Because outright, it wasn't even just the way Sonic looked; it was everything about that trailer. Okay, so let's not pretend like this is gonna fix this movie, right? Like maybe he'll look better, but if the tone is exactly what that trailer showed us. I mean, come on.
I'm still not ready to count this out.
Okay,
as not
that's
like
fair.
the 21 Jump Street of movies.
And you might be right.
And the fact that they have pushed it back instead of just rushing in some, because it would have been super easy to leave the release date the same. Well, I say super easy as somebody who has never done any kind of graphics arts work, you know what I mean? But I imagine it would have been pretty easy for them to, say, cut about half his scenes, redesign him in, like, most of them, and still push this piece of garbage out just to be done with it. But the fact that they, like, pushed it back makes me think, like, they're actually going to put the time into redoing it. Not the whole movie, but redoing the scenes with Sonic.
Right.
And, you know, like, they actually maybe believe in the movie a little bit, which I don't think they would believe in it as much if they were just like, oh gosh, let's get this thing out. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Not that I put a whole bunch of stock in what a studio believes in.
Right.
But I just
look.
Come back to, man, they played Gangsta's Paradise through
Yeah.
that whole trailer.
There is something about that trailer that feels wrong in a different way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
But on the flip side, we could be losing a bad movie that had the redeeming quality of so bad it was hilarious, so we could laugh at it. And now it might just be a bad movie because they're going to fix the ugly Sonic and make him a good Sonic, but then the movie will still be bad. So we'll be like, now it doesn't even have the redeeming quality of having a funny-looking Sonic to laugh at.
if that movie's as bad as the trailer looks, what Sonic looks like won't matter.
Right. That's kind of where I'm at.
Oh, man.
I would not watch that movie over and over again to see that fuzzy, weird-looking Sonic. Now,
With the human teeth.
With human teeth. I'm not going to tune in every time for meow.
Oh, God. So, another discussion that I think is interesting, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but we live in an age where every time the internet's mad about a movie, they're petitioning for things to be changed or actors to be recast or movies to be wiped off of the face of the earth and redone or, you know, brought out of continuity. Like, is this setting a bad precedent that the internet got their way with this?
I don't.
I
I don't think so. Like, it's a thing that it happens. It
Yeah.
happens rarely, and it always looks a little different. But I don't think this is going to change the way movies are made. Now, if this thing comes out and makes $2.9 billion worldwide, maybe. Who knows? But when this thing
can
comes
you imagine
out, you know,
if this thing comes out and it's just like the best Sonic movie we've ever had?
Yeah.
The internet's never gonna stop growing.
I tell you what, the day after it hits that milestone, HBO will start filming Game of Thrones season 8 again.
All over again.
Again, man, I still don't know why they haven't. Do you have any idea?
I still haven't even. I haven't gotten far enough to see what everybody's mad about. I just know that's one of those things that's out there.
Yeah.
They do this for positive things too, though. There's petitions out there to try to get Solo 2 made because people wanted more of something. So every once in a while, you get
Right.
know the internet being happy about something. Well, I guess they're still mad about something, but it's that they want more of something, not something changed.
And you're right. I mean, like, gosh, we're getting more Veronica Mars again.
Yeah.
That is like all the internet's doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like they just keep bringing that show back.
Blew
which is
my
cool.
mind.
So you're right. It goes both ways. I guess it just seems so outrageous in the last few years, right?
Yeah.
Like it's gotten to a point where anytime there's any little thing that somebody disagrees with, they're making a petition trying to get it like
they were petitioning the White House to get Ben Affleck kicked out of the Batman role when he first got cast.
I know, and like
they skipped the studio and went straight to the president.
The president needs to do something about this.
They wanted to pass a law that said Ben Affleck couldn't play Batman.
That's so ridiculous.
I think we're going to be okay.
Sometimes we're the worst.
Hey, we the people, man. It doesn't say we the smart people.
Oh my god.
I don't think it's particularly worrisome. It's tough. I don't think it's going to be as big of a thing as we think it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's good. We've always seen movies that, we find out after the fact that they went to their test screenings and everybody, in Back to the Future, everybody thought the dog died. Right? You know what I mean? Like, we hear stuff about that all the time, and they went and added this, they changed the ending.
Yeah.
What was the one... I am Legend. They changed the ending because people didn't like the ending from the book.
Yeah.
The people didn't like that.
Yeah.
So they went back and changed it and gave us the ending that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's not that unheard of.
You're
it's
right.
just a little more sensational now and a little newer that the internet is going, what?
Yeah,
No!
you're right.
And studios are going, sorry, internet, we'll fix it for you. But also they're not because so far WB doesn't care at all that everybody's mad that Pattinson is Batman. They're just bowling ahead on that. You know what I mean? Like,
well, the WB is not exactly known for having its finger on the pulse of the community.
I was gonna say. I mean, we've seen their track record so far.
Now, I'm
right?
still all for the Robert Pattinson Batman, but that I don't know if that's the litmus test here.
I'm just saying that not everybody bends over for it.
Sure. Well, and my thoughts are two ways. Either this isn't going to end up meaning anything, which is heavily likely, or movies are going to start changing left and right. And I love mayhem, so I win either way.
Right.
I mean, either way, we're all gonna go see this movie, right? Like, we gotta see how this thing turns out.
Well, I also wonder how often we'll get to see stuff like with James Gunn, right, for the Guardians, where the internet blows.
Tim Gunn.
Not Tim Gunn. I couldn't remember which it was. I was like, the Gun, Mr. Gunn,
Mr. Gunn, Mr.
that directs
Gunn.
movies.
Yeah.
Nah, the internet went crazy and Disney went, oh my gosh, he's fired. Is the internet shut up yet?
Yeah.
Cool, you're back in.
Yeah, totally.
Like.
Yep.
So I'm sure we'll see a lot of that stuff.
And remember that, internet, because this is what delayed Guardians of the Galaxy 3 till after Suicide Squad 2. Unless we get a really good Suicide Squad movie out of it. Is that a word?
Suicide
Squad
That's a
movie out of it.
Suicide
In which case, thanks, internet.
All right.
Oh, the world we live in.
Yeah, right. All right, so let's go ahead and move into a little bit of pro wrestling discussion, because there was some big pro wrestling stuff going on in the past couple weeks here. And we've talked about AEW a little bit on the show in the past, and they just held their inaugural event, Double or Nothing. Now, this was already a week ago at this point, and my subscription feed right now within the past week on YouTube has literally been nothing but AEW stuff and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge stuff. It's all anybody's talking about are those two things right now. So it's like, it's been talked about to death is basically what I'm saying. But I still thought it would be good to discuss it because it was such a big...
We gotta have our voice heard.
Yes, exactly. It was such a big thing in the wrestling business.
And we've mentioned it several times.
Yeah. So we don't necessarily need to go like match by match, but I thought like for one, I didn't get a chance to see all of Double or Nothing, but you both did.
Yes.
You both saw the whole show.
Yep.
So we can totally talk about the show, but I also kind of just want to talk about like the show in general and kind of its impact on the wrestling world, because it does seem like it's, at least in the right now, it's having a bit of an impact on things, and I thought that would be cool to talk about.
It's a big deal.
So yeah. So How do you guys want to start? Who wants to start? Because I think you guys
Jared,
have opposing
Jared's
opinions.
face.
Yeah, you guys have opposing opinions, and I'm real curious.
Yeah.
We have opposing opinions?
think, right?
We haven't talked about
I
it a
feel like
ton.
it based on your face, but I also feel like you're a billion times more passionate than I am.
Man. Although today, I'm slightly less passionate. I hated this show so much it made me love wrestling a little less.
Really?
Really.
Ooh.
It was the first time, and this is going to put me firmly. I hope in saying this, it kind of puts my perspective in, or my opinion in perspective.
Yeah, hear him out, everybody. Don't end the show. Let's let Jaren talk, okay? They're all unsubscribing right now.
Yeah,
They're
click,
like, we're done.
Yep.
We're out.
Well, John's gonna like it, so you can just stick around for that.
Not that much.
But it made me. It was the first time I watched something, and it made me feel like wrestling was passing me by. You know, like I watched it, and I know I've seen it so popular. Like I watched it late, so I'd seen a lot of the hype. I'd heard a lot of the hype going into it. You know, I've seen all the clickbait. I haven't watched a lot of them, but I've seen a lot of the clickbait that's like, you know, why WWE should be scared of, you know, AEW.
Boy,
and
That's all nonsense.
The YouTube videos are going bananas with the clickbait titles on the AEW stuff. And, like, you almost can't blame them because there's totally a frenzy right now with that. And everybody's, like, lapping up as much as they can get with it.
Yep.
But they are sensationalizing it, like, so insanely that I'm just so sick of seeing videos pop up. I'm just like, guys... Give it a rest, man. Like, come on. Let's wait a little bit before we're pronouncing death to the WWE or whatever.
Mostly, it just made me real excited to see Cody versus H in like 5 WrestleManias here.
They're already offering him a contract right now for this WrestleMania.
So they to watch that, to see all the hype. So first of all, there's a little bit of that thing where like I see all that hype, and you just, can it live up to that hype?
Oh, I know.
You know,
Yeah,
like
always...
then it's got to live up to that hype.
Yeah.
But even more than that, it makes me wonder, like, so is this really the future of pro wrestling? Is AEW the way it's going? Because I'm not in for that. I didn't like anything that happened on AEW.
Not a thing?
Not a thing.
Whoa.
And that's not to disrespect any of the talent as individually. A lot of the guys on there I have a lot of respect for, and have had a lot of respect for over the time. But the presentation, the way the matches were handled, the way the ends of a lot of the matches were handled, I was not in for any of it.
Wow. Okay.
I don't think I disagree that wholeheartedly. It was the fanciest indie show I've ever seen. And I'm not
still
big
felt very indie.
Yeah, I'm not big into that as far as my, like, I don't want to see ROH with a budget.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what I'm hoping for. However, as an inaugural show, though I wasn't like thrilled with every second of it, I thought there was stuff to build on there.
Yeah.
I did like some of the match work. I didn't like a ton of the endings either necessarily. As a presentation, it was kind of sloppy put together, and that's from putting together a wrestling show and the booking and everything all the way through the technical aspect.
Yeah.
There was they did a 6-woman tag match with a bunch of Japanese performers, and towards the end they have a 2 count. I don't know where the miscue came, but the ref counted 2. There was a kick out. The bell rang. The music started to play. Whoa. The ref is calling, 2, so they finally stop it. And then a few minutes later, the actual go-home happens. The other team wins. The same music started playing, so I didn't recognize it when it first happened because I didn't recognize either of their music.
So they queued up
but when
the
it
wrong
started
music.
playing again, no, they queued up the right music and played it for the other team. So even the guy playing the music didn't know which team was which. Apparently, stuff like that comes through where you're like, well, you guys got to shore that up. That's for sure. But as far as the rest of it went, I don't know any of the characters for the most part. I mean, obviously, like the bigger names, I do. I did like the Cody Dusty match, or Cody Dustin.
I kept doing that too. Yeah. I keep doing that too. Goldust.
Yeah, pretty
He's
much.
Goldust.
Yeah, I liked that quite a bit. I liked how
Red Gush.
how into
Red
it.
Dust.
Red Gush.
Red Gush is right, man.
You know, somebody was asking about the blading for that match because you don't see stuff like that anymore, ever,
Well,
which is I think why they did it. And
Yeah.
somebody asked if it added anything to the match. I said, several pints.
For
sure.
It was gross.
Yeah.
Well, Jaron and I were kind of talking about that before the show started, and Jaron was saying how gross it was.
Yeah, man. At first watching that match, I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool. You know, we don't because the WWE stops guys.
Yeah.
You know, and on the most indie shows that I work, don't allow blood, thankfully, because who knows what's floating around out there.
No
Right,
kidding.
right.
So, you know, I was kind of like, oh, cool. You know, I haven't seen this in a while, and then it just got gross, man. I mean, Cody, he was gushing
Cody
so
was
bad.
covered
Cody
in it.
was covered in it. Yeah, and
No,
not in.
It's been so long that we're sensitized again, so now we're just like, whoa, whoa.
Well, and I knew what they were doing and why they were doing it.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, and
for
I
sure.
don't know if they meant it to go that far or not. I don't think it needed to go that far, but it was just kind of. I'm not a blood guy. I'm not a hardcore guy. But just for the simple fact that it's like we're not allowed to see this anymore anywhere else. It's refreshing in a gross way. Just
Grossly
like,
refreshing.
Well, it's the kind of thing that would make it a alternative. That would put it, you know.
Yes.
That would be in the plus column.
Yeah.
Sometimes the dudes bleed there. You know, we still get to see a little violence. It's not all sanitized, and you know, like that's something that could definitely have would definitely have a market.
Yeah.
I think you hit. You know, you said I knew what they were doing and why they were doing it. Everybody knew what they were doing and why they were doing it, and that was like that kind of sums up my whole problem with AEW. You know, there's no fourth wall. You know, the crowd is in on everything. I mean, the crowd chanted Dusty through the whole match.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You know, they at no point did they really buy into the story. And then at the end of the match, they both man cried in the ring, and he asked them to tag up. You know, I need a tag partner against the two. You know, the best tag team in the world. Like, we know they're your buddy. You know what I mean? Like I know you're just booking a match with your brother and your buddies. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know,
You guys all came out at the beginning of the show and high-fived and everything. And,
Right.
Yeah. However, I think we're on that's the coin we're on opposite sides of. None of that stuff bothers me at this stage. 2 years from now, that'll probably bother me. As the company that's trying to make press and get up and running and trying to do things in what I hope turns out to be sort of an old school way, I'm fine with it right now because I don't know how or what else for them to do anyway.
treat it like a wrestling show with
Well,
rivalries.
but they're trying to treat it like a wrestling show getting off the ground, but they're trying to do it as its own thing. That's going to be trial and error.
Yeah.
Most of the best things in wrestling are trial and error. So they don't all work out right the first time. They don't all feel smooth the first time. We talked about that a bunch in our spin-off podcast when we went over the Undertaker streak, you know?
Yeah.
Like, on paper, how in the world would the Undertaker ever have worked?
Right.
You know? But you try it and you see what happens. And sometimes you get the Undertaker, and sometimes you get Duke the Dumpster Droese.
Yeah.
That's sort of what wrestling is. So I didn't get behind this show as far as going, man, I love what they're doing, and they're right on track, and this is definitely better than WWE will ever be again, and it's the greatest thing in the world, and all these guys are perfect. But I watched it and went, man, all right, you know, I'll watch again. I'm not gonna pay $50 for every one of those.
I will
Yeah,
never. I will not ever pay for another pay-per-view like that.
I know. I kind of hope they find a different way. And it's weird saying that because we're definitely spoiled by having the network now. But now that's kind of how I expect to get my wrestling.
Yeah.
So it is harder for me to fork out $50 for a show like that. And especially since this was their first show, I kind of feel like they should have had like a more entry-level price point for a show that, I mean, the majority of the public probably don't know who these guys are. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, because even though they're popular on the indie scene, we got to be honest and say that that's still very niche compared to the grand spectrum of the pro wrestling watching audience. And I was going to circle that around to one of the points that I heard Jim Cornette make. So I want to reference Jim Cornette here because I listened to his review of
In case you're listening, Jim.
of Double or Nothing, which take that as you will with Jim Cornette, whether you like him or not. I think the dude's got a super good mind when it comes to the business, and even though I don't always agree with him. He was actually very half and half on the show.
Okay.
There were things that he liked, but there were things that he hated, and like he really, really harped on that. But one of the points he made, I thought was a super solid point, because he kind of made the same points that you're making about how it still feels very, very indie. Well, what does he always call it? He calls it like a rogue fed, or how does he refer to the indies? He calls them something else, but like he was
doesn't he call them outlaw feds?
Outlaw feds, yeah. He calls indie feds
right.
outlaw feds.
Yeah.
So he says that it felt like a very outlaw fed show. He has a real problem with the whole like, not, like he doesn't like the whole like we're friends and everybody knows we're friends kind of thing. He's very against that. But his whole thing was this show didn't do a good job of really introducing any of these characters to people that don't know who they are.
Right.
He says the entire thing felt like they were winking and nodding at the fans that were in the arena who all know who they are, but they're not doing anything to introduce these characters to the wider audience, which is what they need to do since they want to go mainstream.
100%.
Well, that was another thing. I couldn't tell if it was a gaffe or not. I think it was when those guys came out with all the minions.
Yeah.
And like one of the announcers was like, I don't even know who this is, and the other one was like, I literally have no idea who this is. Or I'm like, wait, like, do these guys know who this? Because I kept waiting for I thought the first one was a setup, and the second guy was going to be like, oh, this is so and so, and give us a little bit of backstory, and then they all were like, I don't know who this is.
Yeah.
Boy.
So it was like literally, it was just like, who is this? But it wasn't even like an excited, we're selling, who is this guy? They literally sounded confused, or legitimately sounded confused.
Yeah.
And then it was over, and they went on to the next thing. I'm like, what the? What am I supposed to do with that?
Then I have to talk about my favorite part of the whole show was when JR got lost.
They talked about
I
that.
had to stop it and rewind it. They're just rolling along, and they come back, and Excalibur, one of the announcers, he's got a lucha mask on, and he's thanking the fans, for showing up and following them and everything, and JR goes, yeah, definitely. Well, we're going to get back to the action here in a minute. Once again, fans, thank you for your patronage. And you can see him like flipping through, and then finally he just kind of starts to trail off, and then he just goes, I don't really know where we're at right now. Yeah, it was amazing. But the best part was. Marvez, I don't know I can't remember his first name. Alex, maybe, I don't know. It doesn't matter. He was the other announcer. He's just staring at the camera this whole time with just like this deadpan look, and then like JR says that, and he's kind of like he just gives JR this look like, again, man, what do we do? Like, aren't you supposed to be JR? And then he looks back at the camera and he goes, "It's Dustin Cody." And I laughed long enough. I had to stop and rewind and watch it again, and then pause it while I laughed. It was my favorite part of the whole thing.
So on the flip side of that, I will say the Dustin Cody thing is like one of the only things I really did get to see from this. Because I did like there's like an edited version of the match online I was able to watch, so it was the match, but like they kind of cut around through it, so I got to see most of it. So what I watched, I did enjoy. I was fine with the crying at the end and the hugging and everything, only because I actually kind of feel like with these guys, I felt like I was a little bit invested.
Yeah.
Because they've been wanting this match for a long time, and we know that.
Right.
Like, they were petitioning Vince to let them have this match for several WrestleManias in a row. So this kind of felt like they finally got to do their thing. Mm-hmm. And then Dustin was going to retire, because he was doing the thing where he was taking his boots off when Cody was like, I'm not going to let you stop right now. So I bit into that. I was kind of like, yeah, Rhodes Brothers.
This is kind of one of those,
I like that.
This was one of those things that you see a lot of in wrestling, because nobody ever really retires.
Right.
But sometimes you get to a moment and you go, I'm fine that Dustin's still going, because he still won that match. You still got something in the tank. That's great.
Yeah.
You're never going to find a better time to never wrestle again. So it's also kind of sad that he is doing more.
Oh, I get you.
But yeah, as I said, that's one of those wrestling things. Because usually, even when people do get the right retirement moment, they still end up going like,
Yeah,
a year later.
or maybe
anyway.
he's gonna do this tag thing with his brother, and then he'll probably just hang around AEW as like an agent or something. Like,
I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
So here's my thing. Okay, I would not have had a problem with that as the ending to the match out of the context of the show, because every match ended with a moment like that where they kind of looked around. Not everybody got on the mic and was like, I can't believe we're best friends now,
Right.
but every match did a thing at the end where they kind of had that wide-eyed stare, like, can you believe we just survived this? And then like showed each other some kind of mutual respect.
I see what you mean.
For you know what I mean, and then it killed the vibe every time. For me,
Yeah.
so just to see them do it, I've already seen it a bunch of times, and to know so poignantly that, like, okay, this is the owner of the company booking a match with his brother against his two best friends, the other two owners of this company, or runners, whatever,
Right.
whoever the cons, whatever, however they figure into it, right? But I just like, no, fart noise, I'm out.
Well, what about Cody's blatant shot at Triple H for his entrance? How do you feel about that?
Okay, Cody.
Why?
Did that make you feel better?
Well, also, like, why Triple H? Like, I feel like of all the people, like, wouldn't Vince be more the guy that he's got the problem with over Hunter?
Can you tell me what that entrance looks like?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this
Yeah.
with the arms and.
A Vince McMahon lookalike comes down
Yeah,
and hits him with a sledgehammer.
Yeah,
and
he hits him with a
explodes.
sledgehammer. All right, so I get it. It was kind of like his shot at WWE just through the Triple H thing. So, like, on one hand, I looked at that and I was like, all right, so, like, you guys,
Plus,
like,
Cody's got to hedge his bets.
okay.
He's
right.
got to make sure there's room for him when that Mania match comes knocking.
No, H, I built that in for the feud.
For the feud, yeah. On one hand, I look at stuff like that and I'm like, all right, well, like, you guys kind of don't like it when WWE takes the cheap shots like that. So, like, if you're gonna do the same thing, you're just doing the same thing. But on the other hand, I kind of look at that going, all right, well, that just looks like a page out of Eric Bischoff's book. And okay, go get it, guys. All right, just start firing shots. Let's see what happens. So, like, I'm kind of of two minds of that. I don't know.
I thought it made them look. I just thought it was. Like, I guess I thought it made them look petty. It was so blatant, so obvious, and just so in, right? You know what I mean? Like, there was no. It just didn't seem like it took very much imagination to me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, and not everything has to be,
Yeah.
the Citizen Kane of whatever it is.
Wrestler entrances.
I mean, I get, I just think
Triple H is their Citizen Kane wrestling entrances.
I think personally, I think it would have made them look better not to take a petty little shot at WWE, but to give him a grand entrance, spend that money giving him a grand entrance that made him look like as big a star as Triple H.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
I don't disagree. That also would have been good.
Yeah.
I liked what they did fine. I thought it was enough of a... Like, it was the obvious nod because everybody's thinking about it anyway. I really have no idea if H and Cody have a relationship at all.
Yeah.
For all I know, they're buddies, and H knew about it ahead of time. I doubt H is worried about it one way or the other. But I also didn't take it as like a low blow at all. I took it as a challenge. It was less than a like, hey, screw these guys, we're doing this, and more like, hey guys, we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they're not there yet.
Not a low blow,
but-
cheap heat.
Yeah.
It's cheap heat. And I'm trying to view this. I've tried really hard to reorder my thoughts to view it more unbiased, but I just I enjoyed that show so little. By the time we got to that,
Yeah.
I was already like,
I mean, Triple H is the guy that brought a little tank thing to WCW once, so it's not like he hasn't done this before.
Look, and I am
He just made an AEW joke at the Hall of Fame. I
Right.
mean, come on, he's not above this sort of thing. So.
the man, am I not saying he is?
Yeah,
Am I
yeah.
not like? I am not saying, look, how could you do this to Triple H?
He's planning to do something back right now, and Vince is probably telling him not to. Vince is like, no, we can't acknowledge him.
Well, the WWE could probably just build their whole setup and have Triple H come out and hit it with the sled and just have the whole AEW stage collapse.
I hope that's his next entrance.
I don't
even know.
The big surprise at the end of the show that was surprised absolutely no one was when Dean Ambrose showed up.
Yeah, John Moxley. Back to
that, yeah, which is great. Like it was another one where I was happy to see him, but not that happy because I knew he was coming. They paved it as this big surprise, but it wasn't like, oh God, he's here. It was more like, oh, he's already here.
Yeah.
Because if he wasn't debuting here, he was going to debut at the next pay-per-view or whenever they're TNT. Like, there was no question about it at any point.
Well, the way he left WWE was so different than we've seen anybody ever leave the WWE. Yeah. So I do think it left a little bit of a question up in the air because there were so many people still wondering if it was a work, the whole thing with just the way, like, he didn't get future endeavored. He got, like, a whole parade on the way out. He got to sit there and write out his entire contract to the very end, to the point that he got to walk out and didn't even have to live out a non-compete clause.
Yeah.
Like, he wrote it out to the very end, walked out of there, and walked straight into another company.
Yep.
That doesn't happen.
No.
And it's so and with them going, thanks, Dean Ambrose, on the way out. Yeah. Like, it was super weird.
Yeah, they gave him his own special on the network.
Yeah, I know.
That last Shield reunion show or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I listened to him on Jericho's podcast.
Yeah, me too.
To talk about.
Me too.
The thing that makes me hopeful about AEW is especially once I hear like an actual account of how creative and WWE works now. Because I'm not an anti-WWE guy by any means, but it's different than it used to be, and it's not as suited to my taste. It's a little too tailored right now.
Right, and we've talked about that before too. Even when we were talking about all those old Undertaker matches, we've had those conversations. How, a lot of those guys that we loved in the 90s, in the Attitude Era, had a lot more freedom than the guys do right now.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, they've kind of built themselves into a corner where it seems like they'll probably always have a consistent product, but I don't know that you'll ever get a big star out of the way they seem to be doing things.
Of course nowadays. You will. Of course you will. It'll just take the guy. Because, I had this conversation just at my gym recently, which is funny. But you always say that, when you watch, when Hulk Hogan retires, you go, oh, there'll never be another Hulk Hogan, and then when Stone Cold Steve Austin comes along, you're like, oh my gosh, there'll never be another Stone Cold, and then, The Rock, there'll never be another The Rock, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a little trickier because you have to find somebody who can break out. But it'll take somebody who works in that confines. But there will be somebody who works in that confines and that connects with the fans.
But the problem there, and I've never said there will never be another.
Well,
I'm the guy who usually laughs at saying it. But until now.
Okay, all right.
and to say never is wrong because I don't think it'll always be this way.
Yeah.
But the way I understand creative at this point, and some of that spawns from hearing firsthand accounts from Moxley on that podcast, but as tailored as it is now to where even a guy who is one of your big stars that you do have faith in can't change a few words in his own promo without going through 7 levels and then Vince.
Right.
It's going to be very hard for anyone to have that personality because it seems to be very much written for them along the way through. Maybe someone can break through that, but man, it's a lot harder than it is when you have, bullet points and then can do your own thing, Obviously, there are always going to be guys who connect with the audience. That's what wrestlers do.
Right.
But most of the greatest things that have ever happened have happened because guys took chances here or there. And in eras where everybody was taking a chance and 1 out of 100 times it worked out, at least you got that 1 out of 100. In an era where no one is allowed to take those chances, you're going to get a very stable product. It's still going to be very entertaining, but it's not going to have those moments or those breakout characters or those, and even if it does have them once in a while, you're not going to get nearly the unpredictability that you used to have, which is something I miss.
Yeah.
that's my hope for AEW, is that it grows from being just a super hyped up indie show with a great big budget to a place where guys can go and express themselves. In which case, we're going to see a lot of terrible stuff come through, but every once in a while, we're going to get some real gems. And whether that becomes as big as WWE, which I doubt it ever will, but
Right.
I mean, who would ever thought the WWE would have, you know?
Right.
Whether it becomes the next ECW, where it's got a hardcore fan base and that's it, or the next WCW, where it rises real big and then totally collapses, or becomes a thing that just runs alongside it for a while. I don't know where that is, but it's nice to have a hopeful alternative.
Yeah.
It's not there yet, though, by any means. After that one show, I'm not sold on this is the next big thing by any means.
Yeah.
Right now, this is better. I automatically put it higher than TNA or ROH because I've seen one show that I liked fine. I never saw that from the other two companies at all.
I think you're wrong. I wholly disagree with that. I early Ring of Honor, much better than the trash that.
Yeah.
Let me pull that back. Early Ring of Honor shows were much better wrestled and had much more potential and excitement to watch them than Double or Nothing did.
Yeah.
I remember watching the very first episode of TNA, and I liked that better than I liked this.
I never watched either of that stuff early. I
did.
never watched either of it until they both became things, and I kept hearing about them, and then turned them on and went, "Oop, not mine, not for me." But those were, by the time I watched either of them, also they were both pretty much the same style.
Yeah,
and that style, I've talked about that on the podcast before. It's that breakneck, 40 finishers a minute and all that stuff, and none of that stuff gets with me at all.
Yep.
I cannot possibly say anything good or bad definitively after one show.
Yeah.
I hoped for a better show, but I feared for a much worse show, in my opinion. And I will happily keep an eye on them and see what comes next if it doesn't cost me $50 a month.
I was gonna say I will watch when they come to TNT. If that becomes a thing, I will check them out to see what is happening. I will never buy another one of their pay-per. They will have to really impress me with their TNT show for me to ever buy another pay-per-view. I was that disappointed. And I didn't feel when I watched. I don't like. Generally, I don't like Japanese style wrestling. When I watched Wrestle Kingdom from earlier this year, I got to the end of that show, and man, I felt like I'd watched something.
Right.
And now, granted, that is a show from an entrenched and stable and old, like New Japan has been around for a long time. They could be legitimate competition to WWE just on their success.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to the end of that show and I felt like I had seen something.
Right.
I got to the end of Double or Nothing and I felt like it was just another TNA show and not one of the better ones.
Right.
I saw some potential.
We'll see. Yeah, I want to see where this goes for sure. I can't speak too much to it since I didn't see the actual show. I am gonna tune in to the TNT shows if I can find a way to watch them on streaming.
Do we know when that starts?
I don't know if they've announced a date. They just announced that it's coming. But I don't know if it's just where we are these days with the internet and how it's working. But I will still subscribe to the notion that this feels more exciting than TNA ever did when it first burst onto the scene, or any of those. I don't know. Something about this feels different.
Well, I think TNA was around for a while before I ever really heard about it, and same with Ring of Honor.
I guess
those just kind of came.
Well,
up.
also
but I mean, I'm fully agreeing with you.
It was a different time. You know what I mean? We've got so many people doing what we're doing right now and commentating on wrestling on a podcast. We've got all the YouTube channels that are solely dedicated to wrestling stuff now and wrestling news and everything. So there's probably a lot more hype around something like this because of how in our faces it is now with social media that wasn't really around back then. But this just, I don't know. There's been an air of excitement floating around since this show happened that just feels different to me. And in a sense that, I am certainly not one of those people who are going to subscribe to the take that WWE or WWE's going down kind of mentality. But I do think it's always good to have a little bit of something else out there.
Yeah.
And whether this becomes actual competition or not, if there's an alternative out there that's viable, that's accessible, that people can see, that, like you said, maybe talent have an option to hop over to if they want to do something that the WWE is not letting them do, or heck, if it gets to a point where it forces WWE to have to change some things, I think that's all good.
Now, all that's a ways down the road. I mean,
Right.
there's immediately a place for talent to go, which is good.
Well, we keep
because
hearing all those
plenty of-
reports about how there's so many guys that are hoping to do the Ambrose thing now. Apparently, like they're wanting to write out their contracts.
That's assuming AEW sticks around long enough
Right,
to keep paying.
right,
That's
exactly.
the fear there is you don't know how guaranteed that is.
Right.
Even a guaranteed contract isn't guaranteed if the company doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
But there's plenty of stories of guys who couldn't necessarily get over in one place, went somewhere else for a while, got a little bigger, came back and got even bigger.
Yeah.
It's nice to have some place for people to go and
Right.
do other stuff like that. And the great thing about wrestling is it's always been forgiving on that level of, if you can draw money,
Yeah,
you can come draw
exactly.
money.
Exactly.
It's also, I know, I have experience with Cody as a worker. I've always liked Cody as a worker. No, not always. I hated him at first. but I got on the Cody bandwagon earlier than a lot of people did, at least. Dustin, I don't know how much he's got going on with the company, but I mean, I'm sure he's there in some kind of backstage capacity. I don't know anything about the Young Bucks. But I know that, there's at least...
that match. That's all you need to know. That's everything.
There's some pedigree
Lots of
involved
super kicks.
in this company, in the way this company is being run, but it's still people who are very fresh at running shows, Cody's been away from the WWE for a while, and he's put on some shows that have made a lot of waves, but they've all just been larger than normal indie shows. That's all he's used to run.
Just one in this one.
Hasn't he run shows before
Well,
already?
no, he's been on a lot of shows.
Cody was doing.
Yeah, he's been wrestling.
No.
He's done a good job of.
I thought he had been promoting before then. Also,
No, he's done a good job of staying relevant after the WWE as far as these shows go.
Yeah,
but,
and I knew he was always in the news and always had
Right.
upscale matches coming up and all that sort of thing. Which I guess that actually probably steers more into my point, though, is that if I'm going to have faith in the guy, I can't levy that on one or two shows, especially considering these are the first ones. I mean, as long as he's been around, he's never been the guy in charge.
Right.
So I'm going to give him some room to grow there.
Right. You have any final thoughts? You're over here kind of grunting and stuff at everything we're saying.
No, I'm trying not to. I will agree. I agree that it's good to have alternatives. I agree that there is some value and interest to being able to watch these guys grow from the ground up and see where they go. Nothing was done in that show to make me want to come back for more.
Okay.
Well, in fact, a lot was done in that show to make me actively not be interested in it. And
I'd say maybe tell your sound guys who's who, and make sure your announcers know who people are, and get JR a more coherent run sheet.
that was another thing. The announcing was really bad.
It wasn't
Was
great.
it?
It was
I was
really
real
bad.
excited when JR walked out, and then
Yeah.
we got a few matches into that show, and I'm like, this is fine at best.
Yeah,
Fine at best.
JR needs a heel, or he needs to be a heel. There was no heel. Like JR was a color man, but he's a good guy color man, calling the good guy stuff.
And the other guys both came off a little wooden.
Yeah.
Which again, maybe experience.
Maybe they need
will grow 'em,
experience.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And you couldn't tell them apart.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that's the other thing that I've noticed. The WWE does a decent job at having their 3-man team. Everybody sounds different, so you know who's talking. Every other 3-man team I've ever heard, there's one guy who's like JR, notable or whatever, you know what I mean? And then there's two guys that just sound exactly the same, and I can never tell which one is saying which.
Who's talking?
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Well, and they're basically trying to do the same color.
Yeah.
So it's like
Everybody's trying to do
not only do they sound the same, they're saying the same
They're
things.
all trying to do the same job.
Yeah.
Well, We will see what happens for sure.
You guys let me know.
Yeah.
I won't be.
I'll be cute. Yeah.
We'll invite you over and you'll be there.
Yeah. Well, and there was a takeover too this past weekend that I haven't had a chance to watch yet.
I didn't watch it either.
NXT takeover. There's too much wrestling right now, and it's hard for me to keep up with it all. But I would like to. I've heard good things about takeover. So.
After watching Double or Nothing,
yeah,
I could not then bring myself to want to watch Michael Cole and Johnny Gargano.
Michael Cole.
Adam Cole.
Adam Cole, baby.
Yeah.
Michael Cole, baby.
Michael Cole, baby. So I did not watch Takeover because I didn't need to see more Super Indie
wrestling.
Wrestling.
You didn't want to see more Super Indie Wrestling.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if anything, NXT is more of the competitive company to AEW, right? Because the styles are the same in those two shows,
and their stuff is way better.
AEW,
I would just like to point
NXT's?
out. I would just like to point out. Yeah, NXT.
I love NXT, man.
The wrestling was more clean.
That's
I was
H's
not
show,
even.
right?
I was not just judging the
that
style.
maybe that's what it was.
AEW. I'm not just unimpressed with the style. They didn't do it well.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
The guys they had did not do it well.
Maybe they need some polishing. I guess we'll see.
A lot of polishing.
Maybe so.
Some ain't gonna get it because some of them are super old.
And yeah. NXT is H's show, so maybe that's what Cody was shooting at.
Oh yeah.
Maybe
NXT.
he was like, we're coming for you, NXT.
Yep.
All right. Well, there you go. There's some thoughts on AEW and its current impact on wrestling. I will be curious to see everybody's reactions to that, to see what everybody else thinks.
I'm just gonna start doing this podcast. When we talk about wrestling, I'm just gonna start doing it in a lawn chair.
Yeah.
With a rake.
Get off my lawn! Yeah, I know. Sometimes I worry that I sound like that when I'm talking, but I know what I like, and I know, you know what I mean?
I also think I sound like that.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to feel that like that with wrestling. Kind of like he said, he felt like that wrestling's passing him by. I think part of it, too, has to do with, we're all workers, but have been for 20 years now. Man. So maybe part of it's the way we were brought up too, right? Like the way we were trained and brought up in the business.
I think you were about to nail it, man. It's these kids these days. They don't know what's up.
I mean, when we were
with their 40 finishers and their Michael Fogelberg records,
or
Dan Fogelberg.
Dang it! You over here, Tim Gunn and James Gunn.
Cody is not that much older than the Young Bucks aren't that much older than us. Remember
younger than us. You mean?
Yeah, that much younger. Yeah, they're not that much younger than us.
They're the Young Bucks.
But all the
they're
years
not the middle-aged Bucks.
I still feel like all the years that we've been traveling around and doing shows, this wasn't necessarily the style on shows until within the last 10 years here, it feels like.
Really the line, you can draw the line right at our generation.
Yes.
We were the last ones to come through that that enjoyed that old school stuff, and the very next generation came. We came through and all the indie feds were trying to be ECW.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Or Crockett.
That's for
sure.
The
old NWA.
There were so many feds in the early days that just they were straight trying to be ECW.
Yeah.
It felt like, especially when you would I'd go to some of these shows and work on them, and they were doing the full on crazy barbed wire and stuff, and I'd be like, nope, not doing that.
Yeah,
I'll stay out of that stuff. But you guys go ahead.
My very first away show from our home fed, my very first away show was a triple threat hardcore match.
Yeah.
And you just did it. It was just expected. They didn't ask me if I was okay with it. They weren't like, you'd wrestle hardcore? What's your style? I just showed up and they were like, hey, we're going to put you in this this match.
That really shows you how the mindset's changed, right? Because that totally was a thing when we were first breaking in and doing stuff. Hardcore matches were on every show, and now that's one of those things that it's we've kind of moved away from that at this point. Well, the Attitude Era,
which is a good thing.
That is a good thing, and I agree with that.
Yes.
The Attitude Era, that's one thing that the Attitude Era was one of the bad things from that, is they made that so normal that it was just it's not as special.
Well, we used
to hit people with chairs every match.
I was going to say, we used to have to pull people back. Dudes would just go out there and you just hit somebody with a chair, and it was just part of a wrestling match.
Yeah, no, you can't do that. It's got to be something special. You save that. You save that.
But then our the very next generation after ours.
You're right.
Grew up on Ring of Honor.
Well, it's just like
Ring of Honor came. I would think the first Ring of Honor show ran with probably like within the first 2 years of us really starting to get into it, and that next generation grew up watching those guys and wanting to be Daniel Bryan and Loki.
Right. But even since then, it's gotten.
Oh, it's gotten
You know what I mean? Like it's advanced even past that, because even like when I watch Daniel Bryan, and I know he's got more of a WWE style now, but he still stands out, right? Yeah. But even his isn't quite as extreme as what we're seeing with NXT currently and the AEW guys. Like it's like it just keeps. I'm wondering at what point does that hit a wall and reset? You think that's going to happen? Like at some point, is a generation going to come up and look at that the same way as like the hardcore wrestling of the 90s is kind of looked at now? Like, do you think at some point somebody's going to be like, you're doing too many finishers?
and
they're going to bring it back, and then I'm going to be like, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
The style's going to shift one way or another.
It's got to, right? It always does. It always does.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on from the wrestling talk then. We've got a couple movies to discuss before we wrap things up today. The first movie we're going to talk about only Jaren has seen, so we'll let you kind of give your thoughts on Godzilla King of Monsters.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah?
I did. It definitely... So I used to watch a lot of Godzilla movies when I was younger. And there's just this thing that seems to me to be inescapable from monster movies. And even in the old Japanese ones where Godzilla was basically the superhero of the movie, there was still, a huge portion of that movie that was human characters running around doing stuff and not giant monsters crashing through buildings. And this is very much that, you know, like that's the main criticism I could levy at this. And now I think it does it better than a lot of those do, and now I was a young kid and I remember being bored a lot, and a lot of times even like fast forwarding through
because you just want to see the monsters. right?
Yeah. Let's just get back to Godzilla tail whipping a giant crab.
Yeah.
This is awesome. So the monster stuff was pretty cool in this one, beyond anything I ever really expected to see from a Godzilla movie, or any kind of kaiju movie.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed all that stuff. I actually enjoyed the movie. I was not bored with the human stuff, like when the humans were running around doing their thing. Yeah. I was not bored with it, but it was still the majority of the movie. And I did get to a point where I was like, all right, guys, let's wrap this up. I want to see a monster.
Let's see the monster fight.
Yeah, I want to see a monster
fight. So is the majority of the monster stuff like just at the end, or do they kind of mix it in here?
They spread it out a little better than some I've seen before.
Good.
For sure.
I'm gonna go see this, and I might even go see it this weekend. I'm hoping to. So in your opinion, is this gonna be too boring for a kid to watch? Like Spencer really wants to see this because he really likes Godzilla, but by he really likes Godzilla, I mean he really likes Godzilla toys.
Right.
He's never really seen a Godzilla movie. He likes dinosaurs, so he wants to see a big monster running around. So like, do you think he's gonna be like asking me where Godzilla is the whole movie?
I probably maybe. I think the monster fights are still cool enough.
Yeah.
That he'll like it, probably. Right. I'm sure there will be some times where he's going, Daddy, where's Godzilla? Where's the monster?
Where's the monsters?
Yeah. But they do pepper it throughout, and there was only a couple times where I felt like it really went too long without at least seeing a little bit of a monster. The little bit to like satiate that desire.
Yeah.
There's only once or twice where I was like, man, we've been on these humies for a long time.
Is the level of violence and stuff like relatable to something Jurassic World, or do you think it'll be too much for a kid? I'm trying to decide if I'm just going to take him with me to see it or if I need to watch this before he sees it.
And a lot of the people get squished or torn apart.
Yeah, he keeps talking about it, and so I kind of want to just be like, all right, let's go see Godzilla, son.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's going to be like too intense.
All right, on a scale of 1 to where that guy got eaten on the toilet in Jurassic Park, where do we land?
Spencer thinks that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, if that tells you anything about my kid, I mean...
I can't think of anything.
You're right. That is funny.
There's a couple. I don't know if we're venturing into spoiler territory here. There's a couple people.
We usually do.
Well, that was me warning people.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a couple people that get eaten. Pretty blatantly eaten.
Sorry, John.
A lot of
John, don't cry about the people getting eaten.
That's rough.
A lot of people that like disappear into rubble. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
I feel like it's so. I'm having a hard time answering because I feel like it's more intense than the Jurassic World movies.
Right.
But not necessarily that it's gorier or more violent.
Yeah.
Like I don't like. There's not like a bunch of headshots or people.
Okay.
There are people who get shot.
Okay.
But there's not like a bunch of headshots or like
Godzilla
arms,
has a gun.
That's how he fights off King Ghidorah.
Whoa!
That's the big twist.
I'm going now. I'm out of here, guys.
That's the big twist. He just picks up a couple tanks and starts using them like 6-shooters.
Honestly,
he's just wearing an NRA hat.
Oh my god, dude. Yelling America as he's...
Well, that's how he comes back. At first he gets killed by King Ghidorah. But then they drop Clint Eastwood into his cave. And he comes up with a big machine gun. And,
we write the best Godzilla movies.
Yeah, we do. Honestly, I probably have nothing to worry about with that kid.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, he has started. So he likes to play Spider-Man and stuff, like where he pretends he's a hero. You've seen him do it, where he tells me that. Except all of a sudden, his new thing is, "Daddy, I'm Spider-Man." When he gets dusted by Thanos, I don't feel so good, and then it just makes me want to cry. I'm like, what? That's not how we play Spider-Man. I don't even know why, but like he keeps doing that, and I'm just like, what kid wants to play Spider-Man when he gets dusted by Thanos? Like, what's wrong with my son?
Hey, no, listen, because we went through a long period when I was young, where we played Young Guns, and it was always time to finish the game. And so we'd have like this moment where we would always replay the scene where we all ran out and get shot, like legit, So maybe that's just a thing,
maybe
man.
It is
because we'd play Young Guns. We'd all have our different guns.
It kills me, man. I'm just like, what? Why is this how we're playing Spider-Man?
Those are the two best stories I've ever heard.
Oh my god. Oh man. All right. Well, we got one more movie to talk about, and I think all three of us have seen this last one, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's talk about Disney's live-action remake of Aladdin.
I still got to recover from those.
From the stories?
Yeah. Those games are amazing.
You take us in, Dan.
All right. So we talked about Aladdin when the trailer was first released, and we kind of reacted to it the same way the internet did, where we kind of just laughed at the big silly blue CG genie, which they ultimately did fix in like later trailers.
We started a bunch of petitions.
We started a ton of petitions. We wanted Aladdin wiped from continuity and stuff like that. No,
but like, come on, that was not the very first teaser they released.
It's bad.
I can do better with Photoshop.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah,
and I've already been worried about this one a little bit extra than most of the Disney live action remakes, because I know that right now everybody's kind of doing the whole, why is Disney just remaking everything? That's ridiculous. And I'm not necessarily in that boat. Like, I'm fine with it. Mm-hmm. Whatever. Bring them out. Do whatever you want. They're your movies. Make some movies. But Aladdin is my favorite Disney movie.
Yeah.
So I kind of had that thing going where I'm like, there's no way, because I just love that original one so much that I just was real worried about this one anyway. And I wasn't super worried about Will Smith, because I knew that as long as Will Smith wasn't trying to be Robin Williams, we were fine. Like, he was going to have to tackle this in a different way, because you can't just... Like, Robin Williams' genie was just Robin Williams. So you can't go in there just doing a Robin Williams imitation. You've got to do your own thing with it.
And I couldn't think of a better
And I was going to say,
ground,
I feel like Will Smith was a good choice to be, not a Robin Williams genie, to be his own genie.
This is a guy who could do it, but doesn't have to do what's already been done.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was fine with that casting. I did laugh when I saw the original images, because I was like, oh boy, this looks bad. So I was nervous going into this one. However, I was pleasantly surprised with this movie.
Blown away.
We're going to talk spoilers here, right?
Yes.
So spoiler alert. Okay. So
in case any of you haven't seen Aladdin from 1994.
Right. Which, by the way, I watched the animated one before going to see this one.
I specifically did not.
Well, I was trying to decide, because
I've seen it a bunch of times.
I was going to say I've seen it a million times.
Me too. But here's my thing: I was trying to decide if I wanted the live action movie to be Spencer's introduction to Aladdin, or if I wanted the cartoon to be. And I decided I wanted the cartoon to be. So we sat down and we watched it, and he loved it. So it actually worked, because then he got real excited that we were going to go see the new Aladdin.
Yeah.
It actually really worked in my favor. I didn't know if it was going to. It was a gamble, but it paid off, because he got real excited about going to see the new one. So I watched that one first before going to see the new one. So the whole intro, I got a little scared immediately, because I did enjoy the opening with Will Smith singing the song, because I thought that was a great way to kind of do what they did in the cartoon. But then they immediately cut into this weird montage of a lot of plot points. And I went, oh no. When that was happening, I got nervous, because they flew through the first Cave of Wonder segment. Suddenly Jasmine was just in the marketplace without any setup for that happening. And then she was just with Aladdin through the entire one jump song. And I was just like, what are they doing? What are they doing? I'm scared right now. However, once he started singing that song, I just had the biggest stupid smile on my face, because I was into it. I'm sitting there and I'm kind of mouthing the words to myself as he's singing it, and I was really into it. But I kind of felt like from that moment on, I totally loved everything that they did with the movie. Even the little things that they changed, but which wasn't even very much. There were so many scenes in this movie that felt like it was lifted directly out of the cartoon.
Most of it was.
And it was awesome. And the things that they changed, I felt like were totally fine and good changes. So
they added a few things.
They added a few
couple
things.
of songs I didn't recognize and stuff.
Yeah, Jasmine had a new song which she had a reprise for, and I really liked her song. I thought that was cool.
That would be one of my complaints.
Was her song?
Not that the song was bad. I just felt like they tried to make it a little too let it go.
Oh, and they tried to give her a big Elsa moment.
And not enough, well, not something that and I'm fine with giving her a song,
right?
Especially with the way they upgraded her character.
Yes,
I just felt like it was a little too. They didn't try to fit it into the movie. It didn't. It sounded like a new song.
Yeah,
it sounded like an added song.
Okay, it didn't really fit in with the other songs. It felt like a modern.
They made the movie and then decided that they wanted another song. So they kind of
they had the movie from they remade all the old songs.
Yeah,
and then they there was some exec that went, okay, cool. Which one's the Let It Go song?
Oh,
well, we don't have one of those because it's Aladdin. Okay, we need a Let It Go song.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. I do like you just mentioned the upgrade to her character. Character though.
Yes.
I thought that was such a good change, because one of the biggest changes to this was, instead of getting to a point where the Sultan's like, okay, you can marry whoever you want, so that way Aladdin can become the Sultan with no experience whatsoever.
Right.
Which, if you think about it, is kind of silly in the original one. Yeah. So they've shifted that now to where he let Jasmine become the Sultan, but then as the Sultan, she's allowed to rewrite the laws, so that way if she wants to marry Aladdin, she can. But she's like they set up this whole thing where like she knows the role, she's been preparing her whole life for it, so like they kind of did the thing where it's like, well, she's obviously the most deserving, let's let her do it rather than let the street rat become the sultan just because you love him.
Right.
And I think that's an improvement. That's a solid improvement.
For sure.
I'm totally on board with that. Even though I'm totally fine with the old movie too.
Yeah.
I think that's a great new change.
I don't know how much that rewrites history. I don't know how politics work
Right.
back then. I don't know if
Well,
there were allowed to be female sultans, but
and probably not.
But also probably that street urchins didn't just become sultans.
You're right.
Yeah,
right. Also, there were no
yeah.
genies just changing people into princes.
Exactly.
So whatever.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, I thought for a modernization of it, I thought it worked
Totally.
perfectly well.
Well,
Yes.
and so Jafar was somebody else who I was a little worried about because he's one of my favorite Disney villains. And so the new iteration of him in this movie was certainly not as over the top as the villain in the cartoon was. And I actually was kind of concerned about that because I was a little worried that he wasn't going to be as extravagant and everything as the Jafar in the original. But I liked his portrayal fine. I do kind of like how the villainous aspect of him was a little more like politically motivated in this, because his whole thing was like he just wanted to straight conquer all of the other kingdoms, even if they were allies, because he just wanted to take over the world, kind of a thing. So like his whole thing was like he kept he was doing the hypnotizing thing, which comes straight out of the cartoon, but he was doing it more to like try to convince the Sultan to like raise an army and send this army over to these allied nations to grow the kingdom. And I thought that totally made sense for like a villain role. So
I had the exact same worries as you, but I had no idea what to expect. Like I didn't know what I wanted to see. I didn't feel like I wanted to see the cartoon version. Yeah. Because I didn't know how it would play with the rest of the movie, but I didn't know how the rest of the movie was going to play. Yeah. And so that was one, like, I wasn't necessarily blown away by their Jafar, but going into it being really scared by it and not knowing, like, I thought it was really good, you know, and I thought it fit perfectly into the movie, and I really liked the guy who played the role. So I turned out to be very happy with what they gave me there, you know.
I was going to say, I loved the new Jafar. I felt like he stole the movie. With him and Jasmine, I felt like him and Jasmine kind of stole that movie.
I loved Jasmine.
I loved both of them so much.
I missed the snake. I wish he turned into a snake. Jafar.
Oh,
I missed that. That's one of the things they cut, and I was kind of it was kind of one of those things I was excited about. You know, I was like, I can't wait to see him turn.
Snake-like I can
I'll
be.
show you how snake-like I can be. I was excited for that, and we didn't get it, so I was kind of like, huh. But the whole
I wish Iago had a little more personality.
Oh, you wish he was Gilbert Gottfried?
Yeah. That's another one I didn't know what to expect, and was totally fine with the way they did it. It made perfect sense, and the movie didn't need the added character or anything like that. It was just kind of one of those where I was like, man, I always loved the cartoon Iago. Yeah. And, you know.
Not me. I liked the way it was.
Yeah, I was fine with it because he still he squawk talked, but like he still talked. Yeah, like he didn't just do he wasn't quite to the extent of Gilbert Gottfried Iago. But
I felt like it was more consistent between like what Abu was and what he was than in the old one where it's like, well, Abu's still a monkey, but this parrot can talk. I mean, I guess cool because he's Jafar's sidekick who's like a wizard or whatever, but. I like the way that I like that update.
I thought Abu was cute.
And plus, I don't want to hear Gilbert Gottfried anymore, man.
Gilbert Gottfried's great.
No,
that's
wrong.
Totally correct.
I loved the Prince Ali scene.
Yes,
that was
I
was
especially
so excited.
when they got into the the throne room or whatever, and they did that whole bit with him and the genie, and he kept trying to talk. Yeah, the jam.
The jams.
I was crying. Crying.
Yeah.
And Will Smith right after it's like, I've lived, thousands of years, and I've never been as embarrassed as I was right
there. Well, I loved Friend Like Me.
Friend Like Me was so fun.
Yeah. See, I was not super into. I was fine with One Step. Or One Jump.
Yeah.
I was fine with it, and I think Jasmine had her song after that.
Yeah, Jasmine had her song after that.
Fine with them, but I was still kind of just like, not that the jury was out. I liked the movie by then. Yeah. But I was not fully bought in, and I think I was still waiting to see. I was probably waiting, you know what I mean? Like what are they going to do? Like, the genie's gonna make or break this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they did Friend Like Me, and I was like, this is
It was good.
awesome.
It was real good.
Yeah,
It was really good.
I had all the hesitation going in. I liked the opening scene fine. Something about that Aladdin kid, and I think I'm probably the only one in the world. I have no idea where I get it, but he feels older to me than I ever, because the character's supposed to be like 15 or whatever in the cartoon. And this guy's probably 20. I have no idea. I haven't looked it up. But he felt like he was like way beyond that. But then as soon as he started singing and dancing, didn't care anymore. You know? Like everything's fine. And from the very first song, you know, when they got that going, like I was nervous right up until then. As soon as that started happening, I'm like, oh, okay, this is fine. Yeah. If this is what they're going to do, then this is great. And then they just kept doing that. And I was super excited.
My only complaint with him is I felt like he did not. I felt like. And
like the backflip was too much?
No,
Oh, sweet dancing? He did all those cool dance moves, man.
No, I felt like I felt like he was the only one who didn't really grow the character at all. And I'm sure that is not his fault. I'm sure they did not want a new take on Aladdin. They just, played the old cartoon for him and said, do that.
Yeah.
So I'm not judging him at all, but I felt like he was just the same, and that almost made him feel static, or almost like he fell into the background because, Jasmine had so much new stuff to do. She really jumped out, and I think the genie, and Jafar had so much stuff to do that he really jumped out. So it almost like keeping Aladdin so static, he kind of fell into the background and was almost like they could have just called this. Jasmine and Jafar meet a magic genie. Like,
I mean, I still liked it.
I enjoyed in the parade scene when he bust out in the women's clothes, just like in the cartoon. I just got so happy at that part because I was like, yeah, he did it.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, and there were so many moments too that like even gave me the same kind of like old school feels that the old movie did. Like I totally was a sucker for the whole new world scene. I thought it was great when he wished for the genie's freedom. I kind of got that like that little happy like he did it. even though I knew it was coming, I was just like and I loved how they even did like some of the fun Disney stuff in there like the old one did. Like when she asked him to point out Ababwa on the map and he put Fantasyland on there. Yeah. Like he put Disneyland on there and it said Fantasyland. Yeah. I just thought that was great. I was like, that's exactly the same kind of humor that they put in the old one. So I love that they kind of maintained that for this. Thumbs up for me, man. I was all about it. And it's not like it replaces the original one, but it doesn't have to. It was just so fun.
You can watch both
Exactly. Like they're both awesome, and I'm glad they both exist. So good job, Disney. Now let's hope Lion King is as good.
I don't really have any fear about Lion, but part of it is I'm nowhere near as emotionally attached to that one. Like I love Lion King, but not like I love Aladdin.
You know what my worry is with Lion King? I think it looks gorgeous, but I'm a little worried in like the realistic animals emoting because they're not cartoons.
But I think
they're also not cute.
Right? I mean, yes. I'm worried about like when they're singing and stuff. Like, how is that gonna look? Like, I'm just a little.
They just did Jungle Book.
Well,
and it looked amazing, and it was Jon Favreau who's doing Lion King also. Okay, like, we've got a frame of reference for that one. That stuff all looks awesome.
Okay, all right. Well, that's the only thing about that movie. I think it looks gorgeous otherwise, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Couple months, right?
I'm really.
That's June or July.
July, I think.
Yeah. I'm really freaked out by Pumbaa.
Yeah.
Because man, they wild African boars do not look like Pumbaa did in the Lion King, man. He's going to be hard to look at.
He's a sensitive soul.
Well, and the shots of Rafiki kind of freak me out too.
The
baboons are weird, man.
Baboons are weird looking.
So that's my thing is like I don't know about...
like Scar doesn't really stand out too much from the other lions, you know what I mean? Like in the way that he did in the original. Right. Like they colored him so dark with the black mane and everything, and in this he looks like all the other lions with a little scar on his face, and you like have to look for it to see it. So I don't know. We'll see. Aladdin was awesome, though.
Yeah, and at this point, like, if I had to pick one of those movies to be awesome, I already got the one I would have picked.
There you go, yeah.
So, like, I hope The Lion King's great, and I think it'll be great, and if it's not, I don't care, I got Aladdin.
I feel like a lot more people are going to go see Lion King. I feel like that's going to be, like, a huge... Well, you know what I mean? Like, I think Aladdin's doing well, right?
Yeah,
like,
very well.
Yeah.
It really exceeded expectations, and
That's
and
great.
King of the Monsters really blew them short.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I bet word of mouth got a lot of people to Aladdin. Because I think a lot of people were skeptical, but it seems like it has had nothing but positive response.
Yep.
So that's awesome. All right. Well, I think that's going to bring us to the question and answer portion of this episode of the podcast.
Q's and the A's.
That's right. We got a lot of questions from our listeners over at facebook.com/geekeasypodcast. If you guys are new to listening or watching the show, make sure you head on over there and hit that like button. And that way you can ask us some questions in the future, and we might answer it here on the show. So let's get into it. Let's start with a question from listener Tony Hernandez, who says, with ticket sales slowing, do you still think it's possible for Endgame to beat Avatar? I'm gonna direct this for Jonathan. I think that's a good question for you.
Tony, I'm an optimist. I'm gonna still say yeah. I mean, it's like, I think it's within 100 million. It's really close already, but I mean, it's slowing down incredibly. You know. However, we don't know how long the legs are. Things they can stay in theaters for a long time once they get to that point where they keep making money. The longer something stays in theaters, there's sort of a point where, you know, most things, assuming that the math hasn't changed on this in the last few years, the way movie theaters make money, especially like early in a run, they barely make anything off of tickets. It's all off of concessions. The longer something stays, the more money they make off of each ticket. So that's why sometimes you'll see something like, for whatever reason, The Hangover springing right into mind, you know? Like that thing was in theaters for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And that's because it was consistently selling 25 tickets per showing.
Right.
And after the first, 2 months, almost all of that was going to the theater. So they were like, when we can dump it for something newer and maybe sell 40 tickets, but we won't get any of the money.
Right.
Or we can keep selling 25 and keep it all. So the longer it's out, the longer it'll stay out up to a point. With Spider-Man coming out, there's usually a little bit of a bump when the next one comes out. People will go see Endgame again before, not necessarily hundreds of millions worth, but hopefully we can get to that range. You get a couple of more good weekends out of it. Just let it run a little longer and just kind of see what happens. It was never going to happen, and then it was a sure thing, and then it was never going to happen, and then it was a sure thing, and now it's looking a little bleak. But there's also re-releases. Who knows? That's the other trick. Maybe it'll hedge it out, and then maybe Avatar will do a re-release before 2 comes out, or maybe it'll almost hedge it out, and then they'll play it again next year for whatever anniversary they decide it is, or who knows? I'm hoping it gets there this run. I'm gonna keep confidence that it will, but only time will tell at this point.
It's still crazy to me that Avatar has that much money.
Yeah.
When even like Endgame seems like such a bigger, like more culturally relevant film, and Avatar still made that much more money. It's so weird.
Steady
to me.
business for a long time with no competition. I mean, it was a big. I mean, it was a big
know it was a
cultural
big deal.
event.
I
It was a
remember
big
it,
technological event. There was a lot to it. I don't want to downplay.
Right, for sure.
But it
for
also
sure.
came out in December, and the next big movie didn't come out until like March.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas Endgame came out in April, and the next big movie came out 2 weeks later.
It's crazy though. It's so weird to me that that's going to sit there and hold that spot.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like. I mean, I don't know. Like we've talked about it before. Nobody talks about Avatar anymore.
Yeah.
So it's weird to me that that's been sitting there in that spot for as long as it has. But I don't know. Weird stuff. All right. Kerouac says, "Do either of the other hosts collect anything, or is it just Dan with the addiction?" Do you guys have any collections? I know you don't collect like I collect. Like I go a little overboard probably, but
I used to have a really fancy DVD collection, but now everything's digital.
Yeah.
I guess it was never that fancy. It was just bigger than most.
Except you were very particular about your boxes.
Yeah. We were talking about that just the other day.
Yeah.
Long story though. I've got some toys and stuff like that, but no, I mean nothing like this. No.
I have a lot of stuff. I don't think you really collect anything either, do you?
The only thing I really collect is shot glasses.
Oh yeah, shot glasses. Like
collect
anytime
shot
we go on
glasses.
vacations and stuff, you always grab a shot glass.
Yep, I like to have. I like to have one from everywhere that I visit.
Mm-hmm.
and just any one that looks cool.
Right.
I like doing shot glasses.
I used to do that too, but I just stopped at some point.
I kind of collect like regular glasses.
Yeah.
Like if I see a glass that looks cool,
Yeah.
I'll grab one of those because it matters to me what I drink out of.
Yeah.
No,
that's cool.
Does it count as collecting if you simply never throw away anything you've ever owned?
No, that's hoarding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Then no, I don't collect anything.
Do you still have a bunch of toys in the storage shed somewhere?
Oh,
yeah. I know we've talked
Everything
about
I've
that.
ever owned.
Everything you've ever owned is just sitting in the storage shed? That's amazing. So you gonna tell everybody where your storage shed is?
I don't know where it is.
You don't know? It's just it's been on one of those TV shows at some point, right?
Well, it's not my storage.
Opened up the storage Storage Wars.
Like, this has been in storage for 15 years probably. This is all out of my parents' old house and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
okay, all right.
it's their shed.
Maybe this is one you can answer since you were talking about Godzilla.
Yep.
Wes R. Scott says Godzilla King of Monsters opened this past weekend. If the MonsterVerse should survive beyond the planned Godzilla vs. King Kong movie, which is the next one that we already know, are there any other monsters you guys would like to see in future installments?
Weren't they all in this one?
No, they weren't.
Okay, so I have a couple answers.
Because we got Mothra and Rodan and Ghidorah in this one, right? So, okay, go ahead.
So, first of all, my favorite has always been Gamera.
Gamera, yeah.
So I would now I know he's
gonna say
not
Gamera,
necessarily. I don't think he
joke.
ever met Godzilla or anything.
I don't think
He's
so.
a
Right.
different.
He was like
a
his
different
own
franchise,
Godzilla.
right?
But they could
I
totally
just
do
remember
that,
it from
right?
old Mystery Science Theater episodes.
That's still isn't that still a Toei? I don't know. I
Pretty
never
sure.
know how to pronounce that. It's Toei, right?
Toei is probably good enough.
That's still them.
Good,
though,
good
right?
enough for our podcast.
Yeah.
I believe so. I have no idea.
What about?
I always assumed it
So-
wasn't because I thought he was like his own Godzilla. Like,
Well,
I
he
thought
is.
was like a replacement
He is.
Godzilla, not like a different monster.
Well, he
Right, he was never in there.
He's got his own series of
Yeah.
movies that
Yeah.
didn't cross over with Godzilla. that
Like
I know of.
Godzilla
I
met
know of.
Mothra and Rodan and
Exactly.
all those already.
Which they had their own movies
Yes.
too, right?
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
There
maybe I
was
just
the
don't know what
old.
I'm talking about.
Who was I don't remember the name of the monster. He had like hooks.
I
for
know who you're
hands
talking about,
And like
though.
one eye. He was always my favorite Godzilla bad guy.
What about Mechagodzilla?
I was about to say, that's the
he's-
obvious answer,
He's an
isn't it?
obvious one, right?
I feel like
dude.
Mechagodzilla. It's almost weird to say that I feel like he'd be a little too
Oh, Gigan.
Gigan.
Is that the one
Yes,
you were talking about?
That is the one I was talking
Gigan.
about.
Yeah.
That's like an updated Gigan.
Yeah, there's
with,
a
like,
couple
saws
different-
and
It's like,
stuff.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
Mecha Guy again.
Mecha Gigan. Here, I'll
I almost like this sounds completely ridiculous to say.
There he is.
There he is.
That's the Gigan you're talking
the
about.
fins and the
Yeah. We're looking at pictures in case
Yeah,
anybody's
sorry.
wondering.
For all you audio
definitely-
listeners.
Definitely, he was always my favorite Godzilla bad guy. I almost feel like Mechagodzilla might be a little too fantastic.
Yeah?
for the
But people would be way into that.
people
You know
would be
they
way
would,
into that,
right?
and it won't matter when they do it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But there's almost this kind of feeling of like we haven't had anything like that. I don't know. Just because all the monsters like
This guy.
come from the earth, you know what I mean?
Right.
And the humans haven't really shown any ability to create something on that level, I feel like.
But that's answered in the first 5 minutes when
Obviously.
they go, Godzilla's kept attacking us, so we decided to build our own.
Obviously.
Like King Caesar or whatever he is.
Oh yeah.
This is a weird looking guy too, I always thought. But he'd be
He's the food dog.
yeah, that's totally what he
It's
looks
called,
like,
yeah.
right? Yeah. He's a weird one. Yeah, look, there's Mechagodzilla right there.
Well,
with him.
that's from Mechagodzilla. I
Yeah.
remember I had that one. I used to go watch it all the time. Actually, I kept it.
It looks so cool. These movies are awesome. I love the big silly suits and everything. I mean, like, you know what? I will say, hey, Ultraman.
Yeah.
I would say,
So do we need to do a
Ultraman versus Godzilla?
Godzilla good yay?
Oh, Godzilla good gay. Oh my gosh, just watch a bunch of Godzilla movies. I will say that's one thing like about these old Godzilla movies is they're so bright and colorful and they're fighting during the daytime, and I kind of wish they would do that. Like, I haven't seen the new one, but everything I saw of the new one always looks like they were fighting in the dark in thunderstorms.
Pretty much.
And it's like, why? Why do they always have to be fighting in the dark in thunderstorms? Like, give us...
Well-
I want to see the monsters. Let's put them in the daylight.
Do you want a little spoiler?
Okay. That's fine.
So a little.
Does everybody else want a little spoiler?
Well,
Sure, it's okay.
a very teeny tiny spoiler is that's partially because there are thunderstorms that follow Ghidorah around.
Okay.
So like he is everywhere he goes, there's like a thunderstorm. So like that's just kind of part of his thing.
Oh, I didn't
for
know
this
that.
one, yeah.
Oh,
for this
okay.
one, I don't think that was that way in the old one.
Plus, the CG's way cheaper if you can't see it.
Yeah, no doubt.
And look how cool he looked in the originals, man. Look, you can see his strings and everything right there.
Awesome.
It's amazing. I love it.
You should save that picture.
Save this picture?
Send it to me and I'll put it up when we're talking about
All
it.
right, will do. I'm gonna leave it up right here.
Maybe I'll look for both those pictures when I edit this and we'll throw them up there. We'll see, guys.
All right.
We'll see.
Let's bring it to a question from... Well, actually, this is 2 questions, but we'll go on and answer both of them real quick. Rodney Langford first asks, what are your thoughts on the Dark Crystal Netflix series? Trailer was just dropped on that, and it's like a teaser trailer, but I'll just say that I'm excited. I think it looks freaking gorgeous. I love that they're going full-on Muppet with it, and I'm in, man. I can't wait to watch it.
I'm super excited.
Yeah.
The original Dark Crystal was the other movie that I kept at my grandma's house.
Yeah.
So I've watched that movie 100 million times.
Awesome.
You know,
Awesome.
and I'm super. It's one of those that I don't think of it's a total like my childhood was the Dark Crystal.
Nice.
You know what I mean? But I don't think about it a lot.
Right.
Because it's been so long.
It's kind of a weird movie,
Yeah.
and it's one of those ones too that like it looks really cool, but I feel like a lot of people watch it and kind of go, "What am I watching? What is this?" You know? And it's kind of one of those like. It was one of those really out there ideas that Jim Henson had when he was trying to show people that he was more than just the silly
Kermit,
Muppets guy. Yeah, because he never liked the stigma of just doing the kids stuff. He wanted to do other things, and I think, you know, he was able to make it, but I don't think it ever performed well for him, you know? So I think it's awesome that it's going to kind of like get brought back to life, and it looks good. I love that they're doing it the way they're doing it. It's not like a cheap CGI cartoon or something.
Right.
Like, it looks full-on Muppet stuff, and I love that. I think that's great.
And so far, I feel like the Netflix projects are better bringing stuff forward than some of like their original stuff. You know,
Okay.
like She-Ra and Voltron.
Oh,
and, you know what I mean?
Good calls,
you know, I feel like that. Like I like that stuff better than some of the. This is a Netflix original type thing.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. Cool.
I got real excited about 30 seconds into it when I realized that the Dark Crystal and Labyrinth were 2 different things.
You didn't... What?
I kept hearing Dark Crystal, and in my mind it was Labyrinth.
What's wrong with Labyrinth?
No, nothing's wrong with it, but
I was gonna say we'll fight right
So
here.
were you just super mad that there was no David Bowie because he's not alive anymore?
Yeah.
Like, how's David Bowie
How
going to
they
be in
do more
this?
Dark Crystal without Bowie?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, it's a different thing.
Man.
I also love Labyrinth.
Could just
man.
be that. It could just be that worm. I still laugh every time. He's like, can you show me how to get to the castle? Nah, I'm just a worm.
Yeah. You remind me of the Babe.
What babe?
The Babe with the power.
We'll sing the whole thing. You got to stop.
All right, so Rodney's second question brings us back to wrestling, so we'll end there
Love
today.
it. Thanks, Rodney.
He wants to know, the hardcore era of WWE, did it help or hurt wrestling in the 2000s? And this kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier. So I guess we almost kind of gave you an answer already when we were talking about some of our earlier experiences in the business ourselves.
I don't know if it hurt wrestling. It hurt a lot of wrestlers.
Yeah, I wouldn't say hurt necessarily, but I definitely think
When
it...
did that era, I mean, when did the hardcore stuff really kind of
It was in the
phase
late-
out? Early 2000s.
late
right?
90s
It was late 90s when it was
through-
like really strong.
Yeah.
And then probably what, like 2002 or so?
Well, I mean, we still have.
Well, because now, you know, they brought that 24/7 title back, right? That's like a
I've
thing
heard
now.
something,
It's
but
not
I
a
don't-
hardcore title, but it's a 24/7
Yeah.
title,
Well,
so that they can still do the unpredictable.
Yeah, and they've always done like hardcore style stuff ever since then, but like it was like a big thing every show for a while, for
that's-
several years there.
I was going to say, the worst thing about that stuff, to me personally, is that it desensitizes everybody, right? So, like, when you see a million chair shots or a million tables get exploded and stuff like that, it's just not special anymore, and it doesn't feel exciting, and then guys are just having to, like, find new ways to, like, up that ante, which can get really dangerous and really dumb. And I don't know, like, I just have that very old school mentality where, like, a chair shot should be a big deal. When somebody gets hit with a chair, that should give you that gut reaction of, like, oh, and, like, it should lay the guy out, and it should be, like, a false finish or, like, a big deal that he just hit some. You know, that's what I like to see with it. So I think
also
that's
what a finisher should do.
Exactly. So that's definitely, I think, the downside of that.
But I think the question is less like, I mean, like, it was never a style I particularly liked either, but did it help wrestling? I mean, I think it put a lot, it came around in an era where a lot more eyes were tuning in, and I think part of it was probably from that. I'm glad it didn't become a thing that stayed forever.
Right.
But I think in an era where they were just growing and expanding, and that was when a lot of the, Crash TV stuff was going on in the Attitude Era, where it was like, let's just try everything and see what sticks. I think it gave them attention. Anything that gives them attention helps out to some degree. And then they gave them some actual wrestling that kept people around. So from a strict business standpoint, did it help? Probably. Did I like it? Not really.
I think, I'm having a real hard time answering this question. I think it helped wrestling. I think it was good for wrestling because it gave wrestlers more colors to their paintbrush. I think one of the things that we're really missing from wrestling right now is when the match becomes a fight.
Okay.
And with the constraints, when hardcore wrestling was like the thing, and when in the era he's talking about, there was a lot more freedom, and you would see them. The main event wasn't the main event unless it spilled out of the ring and Stone Cold grabbed a chair, and then Bret Hart, took it away, and you know what I mean, and then they crashed through the announcer's table, and all that stuff brought that match to, like, all that stuff was okay because hardcore wrestling was all right, even though this wasn't necessarily a hardcore match. They could incorporate that and tell a bit of a different story, and you could see the fight. It felt like when that stuff started to happen, it felt like, oh, business just picked up.
Right.
You know what I mean? And one of the things I don't feel like right now is that, business never picks up. It's like the spots and the moves get bigger, but there's never that emotion of, like, man, I'm gonna hit you as hard as I can with this chair because I hate you, or you thought you were gonna hit me with, you hit me 5 times, you hit me with this chair, now I'm gonna lay you to waste with it. You know what I mean? Like, there's just not that guttural, like, that makes it a fight, that makes it wrestling. And I think now it's just all like, let's do this spot. Now let's do this spot.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And even when
moment to moment.
And even when they spill outside, it's either something super gimmicky, like when they when they spear somebody through the
little barricade around
through the barricade
around the belt,
and you can see them setting it up, and you can see them lining it up, and then it happens, and you can see all the points where it breaks away. Or you see them clearing off the table, and we know what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? It just doesn't have that same chaos when it comes back to some of the hardcore wrestling. So I think having phased that out, wrestling's lost a little bit.
Okay.
Now it's probably a lot more healthier for the wrestlers. It's also harder on us indie workers because now it's harder for me to tell who's an idiot or not.
Oh God, yeah.
When hardcore wrestling was more of a thing, there was easily, guys would just come up to you and be like, yeah, I mostly do hardcore stuff, and I was in this King of the Deathmatch thing over in Paducah, and you're like, okay, well, I know I'm never working you.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, not good at wrestling.
Yeah. Now I gotta wait till I get in the ring and find out that the guy's an idiot, and that just makes it a lot harder.
That's scarier. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't want to sound too harsh, but a lot of the people that got phased out by that style were not people that ever needed to be in it anyway. So
we're not missing.
Oh man,
we're not missing you.
Oh man,
we didn't lose a lot of legends.
Jeez. Awesome. All right, well, hey, that was a great batch of questions there, and if we didn't get to yours,
Yeah,
a lot of them I think we answered like through the course of the show, but there's a couple of them. So if you guys ever have any questions, feel free to head on over to the Facebook page and ask them. I always try to put up a thread before we record so we can try to collect them all for you, and we might answer them here on the show next time. So definitely keep posting, guys. Love to hear from you there. And as always, there are lots of different ways you can listen to this show. So if you guys prefer video, head on over to YouTube, type in Geek Easy Podcast, hit that subscribe button before you do anything else, and then watch the show and hit the like button and leave comments. Help us spread the word and grow the channel. If you guys prefer the audio version of the podcast, you can find that on any of your preferred podcasting platforms, which includes Spotify and iTunes and Podbean and Stitcher and Google Play and all that sort of stuff. So definitely rate us and review us and subscribe and all that good stuff.
Is iTunes still a thing?
iTunes is still a thing, I think. Is it not?
I thought it wasn't.
Still on my phone.
I'm certain iTunes is still a thing. I think it's still the biggest thing that people listen to podcasts on, I believe. But we're on all of them, so it doesn't matter either way. We're out there.
You'll find us.
You'll find us. There's lots of ways to find us. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen? Anything else you want to say tonight? Nope.
I saw my baby crying hard as babe could cry.
I love it.
What could I do? My baby's love had gone and left my baby blue. Nobody knew.
What kind of magic spell to use?
Slime or snails.
Puppy dog tails. And baby says,
Dance magic, dance magic, dance magic, dance magic. Put that magic spell on you.
we've never ended a show better than that.
The Geek Easy Podcast is a production of PixelDan.com. Musical tracks used in the intro and outro are used with full permission of the respective owners or creators. Intro and outro narrations are provided by me, Brian T. Stevenson. PixelDan.com's The Geek Easy Podcast is provided for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those solely of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily represent those of PixelDan.com or any other party. Be sure to join us next time for another installment of the Geek Easy Podcast.